Everyone, welcome to my weekly edition of Show Me How It's Done. My name is Lauren Urbonis and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. So every Tuesday at noon, I have the pleasure of introducing you to a project or a product that I've been having a lot of fun with lately. And today's video is going to be centered around the Merriest Trees bundle. So this is the bundle that I actually featured for half of my day at my recent Handmade for the Holidays all-day crafting retreat. I do those events twice a year, once in the springtime when we have our new catalog and once at Christmas time, where people can come to my house and craft for a full day playing with two different bundles and getting a lot of project ideas with them. So this year, the Merriest Trees was featured as one of our bundles, and the Berry Cute bundle was featured for the other half of the day. And I'm really excited to show you one of the projects that my attendees got to make. So this little card here, when it's folded like this, can be put into one of our standard envelopes. However, once somebody receives it, you can help them by telling them how to pop it up and making a little panel card. So it's called a pop-up panel card, very aptly named. And I know you're not getting the full effect because you're getting blinded by the shimmer, but it's super, super cute. Something for people to put on their desks and just kind of look at. I did put a little panel on the back that you can write a note. But if you're thinking this is just for a decor item, you don't have to add that feature as well. So make sure you just set it on the desktop and kind of pull some of those pieces into place so it rests nice and flat. But once it's set, it's very sturdy and it's really, really pretty. So I'm going to show you how to make these pop-up panel cards. I was introduced to them years and years ago by a demonstrator named Lisa Curio. And so in my little journal of, measurements that I love and cards that I like to play with was this pop-up panel set of measurements. So thank you to Lisa for providing that to me and the inspiration that went with it. I decided to use those measurements and I modified them a slight bit just to kind of fit my design. She doesn't use these green panels or anything in the background. But I wanted them. So I just added those. I've put all my measurements and hers into the description on the ad or on the video. And then you also have the option to see all the supplies that I used on the card listed there too. So without further ado, this is the Merriest Trees stamp set. It's very fun and festive. And there is a gorgeous set of dies that complement it as well. The fun thing with this die set is it can cut out all of these different trees and kind of make a fully paneled tree card. So if you were somebody who is like, no, I'm not going to be folding this back and forth, you could actually make this tree pop out. You could use multiple dimensions and kind of make the beautiful standalone tree. But because we want this to fit through its little holes and fold flat, I wasn't able to use dimensionals, but I did do one extra tree down here at the bottom. Okay, so let me show you how to make the card. I'm going to warn you ahead of time that you'll probably want to stop and pause and kind of do a few things. That's why this one is recorded for you, because a couple of the card features, it was just easier for me to have them prepped, and then you're not watching a 2-hour-long video. Not that it's going to take you 2 hours to do this, but if I was to go through every step, it might. Okay, so here we go. We've got our beautiful card. Let's start by working on this card base. So I need a piece of pretty Peacock cardstock. Oh, sorry, my camera likes to focus on whatever's tallest, which, there you go, was the card. So this card is going to measure 4 1/4 by 10. We are going to need to do a bunch of scoring. So if you have the Stampin' Trimmer, you can do the scoring on that. But because it's just easier for you to see on a video, I'm going to use my scoreboard and show you all of the numbers, okay? So we've got lots of score lines to do, 7 of them in fact. The first one is 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 3 3/4, 5, 6 1/4, 7 1/2, 8 3/4. So these are all very equal sections. If they don't look equal, then just stop and go back. Make sure you're on the correct lines. So let's confirm these. 1 1/4, 2 1/2, 3 3/4, 5, 6 1/4, 7 1/2, 8 3/4. Okay, so you have 7 score lines, and we're going to need to use our trimmer now to cut on one of those lines. Okay, so I'm using my Stampin' Trimmer. If you don't own the Stampin' Trimmer, you'll just have to grab a ruler and some sort of cutting blade, because we need to make a little cut in this middle section here for the paper to pop up, but we're not cutting all the way through. So that's why you need a blade that you can actually put into place. So you'll see as I'm working why that's essential. So before we cut anything, let's make sure we're cutting on the right line. So I mentioned you have 7 lines total. You need to find line number 4. It should be this one right in the middle so that you have equal sections on the left and the right. Okay, so that line number 4, we're going to put right on our cutting track, and we're going to put our little arm down with the cutting blade. The cutting blade, I'm just going to put right in this middle part and poke it into place. I don't want it in the bottom. I don't want it in the top because I don't want it cutting through my edges. Okay, so on our Stampin' Trimmer, let's see if I can move this. There are little lines on the arm. So it's got 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, all of that. And I know it's focusing on my hand. So what we need to do is we need to make a line from the 1/2 inch all the way down to 3 3/4. So that in essence is going to give us 1/2 inch that we have not cut in this side, and 1/2 inch that we have not cut into on this side. Okay, so if you're doing this by hand, you'll grab your ruler and you'll just make a little tick mark at 1/2 inch, make a little line, go to the other side and make another mark at 1/2 inch, and then you're going to cut with some sort of a blade in between those 2 dots. Okay, but we've got our trimmer. So we're going to just slowly go up so that my 1/2 inch is equal to the little line on my blade that shows exactly where my blade is. Okay, so those 2 are now equal. And we're going to come back down, sliding until we reach the 3 3/4 inch. And lined that up correctly. Okay, and then just gently kind of make sure there's nothing bumping in between that. So this is what it should look like. You should have this little break, but we have not cut all the way to the edges. If you cut too much, then your card's going to kind of fall apart and you won't be happy. It's a very sad thing for you. Okay, once we're done cutting, we're going to do some folding. We need a bone folder, and we're going to fold on all 7 of these lines the exact same way. Okay, so I'm just going to fold in. It's easier for me to do it. And after each fold, I'm just burnishing with my bone folder. Nice line. Be very careful with this middle one. You don't want to rough and handle it a ton, but you do want it to have a crease. It will fold and go in an envelope with that crease. 2, 3. Okay, So now it doesn't matter which side you start with because they're both equal at this point, okay? So let's say I've got all of these, they're kind of folded inwards. I'm just gonna pick one of my sides and face it towards me and just fold up this bottom panel. This is the panel I'm gonna work on, and the rest of this we will get to in a few minutes, okay? So this panel here, I'm going to need to cut a cardstock piece. So that would be this piece that sticks up. We need to cut one of those pieces, okay? That piece is going to be 2 3/4 by 4.5, and I just realized it flew onto the ground on me. So here we go. 2 3/4 by 4.5 is what this piece is going to measure. Oh no, sorry, don't listen to me. Erase that. 2 3/4 by 5.5, okay? We'll pause because I messed you up, I'm sorry. 2 3/4 by 5.5. Okay, now take this little panel here, and it doesn't matter which side, because again, there's nothing on the paper right now. We're going to put some adhesive, whether it is double-sided tape or seal, on the bottom section. So you have about the last inch to work with. We don't really want you to put any adhesive up in this section because that would show on your card. You want whatever will stick to this little guy right here, okay? So I've put 2 strips of double-sided tape on, and I'm just gonna go ahead and take that off now. And I'm going to center this so that I have about an equal distance on my right and left side, and the bottom of that panel is resting against this little fold line, okay? So that's what it should look like once it is in place, okay? Now this guy we're gonna set aside for a minute because we need to worry about that beautiful silver tree and the piece of paper that's going to attach to this panel. So put that to the side and grab yourself some basic white cardstock, and we are going to emboss on it. You can stamp, certainly. It will look beautiful. I just was having fun with the embossing. So for my white piece, it's 2.5 by 4.5. Pardon me, and I need my large tree, my Versamark ink, and my silver embossing powder. So I like to keep these large stamps just on the desk because otherwise they're very heavy and kind of hard to use. So stamp all over. And we're stamping just off the bottom. You don't want to go right to the bottom of the card because that's kind of getting tucked in. But we want this stamped near the bottom so that you have plenty of room for a beautiful star up in the top of your project. Okay, pressing all over. I really should have probably grabbed like my silicone mat or something to stamp on these photopolymers, but I'm gonna just stick my hand back here and rub it in place. There we go. Still can't see it, so let's grab our silver embossing powder. I'm using our beautiful little tray. Comes with a brush, a little set of tweezers, which make embossing very easy. Okay, oop, one more little bit. Sometimes things don't get covered. You're right. There we go. Okay, you have a lot of extra here, so you can use the little brush that comes with your tray if you want. But to start, I always just do a little flicking on the back, very gently, and most of that embossing powder will come off. Okay, if you have any left, then go ahead and use your brush and try and get rid of it. Now this is where those little tweezers are going to come into play because you don't want to burn your fingers on this small little piece. And we're going to heat this tree until it gets nice and shiny. So let me grab my heat tool. You won't be able to hear me while it's going on, so I'm just going to say you're going to watch for this kind of dull gray to turn a really shiny silver. Just stop there for a sec because I know you also can't see. So do you see the difference? I've done the top of my tree and it's very nice and shiny, but that bottom still looks pretty dull. So that means I have not heated it enough and it needs to keep going. If you're ever worried about if you've gotten everything, just take this under a light and kind of move it until you see all of the glistening. You can even take your phone camera and kind of move it underneath and see where the light shines and where it doesn't. But the worst thing you can do is not heat it enough and then go to touch it and you've brushed off all that powder. It's just so disappointing to have to start over. So just be sure before you kind of call it done. When you're happy, then we're going to do another kind of embossing with this. So it's not a heat embossing, it's our embossing folders to give us a really beautiful kind of sky look. So I'm using the Snowflake Sky 3D embossing folder, and I'm going to put this down. Make sure you've got your snowflakes falling the way that you'd like them to. And when you're building your platform for this little technique, we're going to use platform number 1, which is that nice thick one. Then we've got our 3D embossing folder. It's a really thick folder. That goes next. And then last is this really thick embossing plate. So if you have recently purchased your machine, your plate will be gray and it will have a number 4 up in the top. If you purchased this when it originally was released, yours will look like mine. It'll be purple, no number on it, but they are the same. Okay, so make your little sandwich. I'm going to do this just on the ground because it's easier than lugging it up on my table. And there we go. This piece has jumped ahead. It jumped out and it's like, it's my turn now. You can go ahead now because, you know, your white's jumping out at you, and cut a piece to write on from basic white. So this is going to be 2.5 by 4, and set it aside though, because, you know, it jumped ahead in the turns. So Snowflake embossed tree. This is the piece we're worrying about right now. We're going to put adhesive all the way around the edge. You want that whole perimeter covered because this piece will be moving on you and you don't want it to end up catching or not sealing properly. Okay, so put adhesive all the way around the edge. And just to be honest, I am being a little risky by using embossing on this card. It is meant to be a card that you simply use a plain white piece of paper and stamp on it so it's flat and it slides through the slit really easily. I'm being a little risky embossing and also adding some detail. So when I have to move mine through the slit, I'm going to have to do it kind of like centimeter by centimeter, as opposed to the ease that this would work if you just wanted to stamp the tree. But we're making this pretty, okay? So this little panel here, you'll notice is actually longer than your white piece, but it will give you even borders on the top and the left and the right. So that's what you're concerned about at this moment, is just even borders on these two sides and your top section. It doesn't matter about this bottom part here, okay? So for this bottom, now we're going to do a little bit of adhesive additions. So I'm doing tape, and you're going all the way across this time. You're going all the way across this whole section and covering this whole panel. You want it to be nice and secure. So you can even go across this tree, the bottom, because it's still part of this panel. And then we're ready to start folding the card up. So the first step will be to take your little pop-up panel and stick it. You kind of have to bend it, but don't fold it. Stick it through that little hole, okay? And now you can see it's popping out the top. We're gonna take the opposite top here, this one, fold it under. I'm not gonna take my tape off quite yet because I want you to see what I'm doing. And I'm folding it in half. So I should see 3 panels, when in reality there are 4, but I've folded number 4 under, and I'm connecting it to this piece, okay? So I'm gonna connect just like this after I take all my tape off. 1, 2, 3, okay? Squish those together while they are flat on the table, because then they will be perfectly even for you, okay? Now we need to decorate. So you need to cut 4 pieces of cardstock if you want to copy my kind of shadowed design here. These are going to measure 1 1/8 by 4 1/8. And then you need 4 pieces of designer paper that are, oh, do mean 4. The other one hiding somewhere. Little paper. What's 4? Teal one now. Okay, 4 pieces of designer paper. Once again, are you? Where are you? Oh, there it is. I found it. Okay, these are 1 inch by 4 inches. I'm going to start by mounting all 4 of those onto their bases. Then we'll start putting them onto the project. So use flat adhesive, no dimensionals, because you want this card to kind of be really easy to move and open and close. But you can use seal or tape, it's up to you. And this will have the barest of borders, okay? So don't give it a very generous space. It's just to break up those pretty peacock patterns a little bit. This paper, if you're wondering, it's from the Walk in the Forest Designer Series paper package. That is the paper in our holiday catalog that coordinates both with the Berry Cute and with the Merriest Trees bundles. It's also Stampin' Up's product give back. So for every package that Stampin' Up sells here in Canada, they're giving $4 to the Salvation Army. I know the amount that they give in the US is $3 American, but I'm not sure what the charity is, just because I was more focused on learning about where the money would be going here in Canada. So it's a great package of paper. You're not paying any extra. It's the same amount as the other papers, but Stampin' Up is going to donate $4 per package on your behalf. So it's a really good package to consider buying if you're looking for something for the holiday season. And speaking of shopping, I do have my website listed on the bottom, laurenurbonus.stampinup.net, and every product that I'm using on our cards can be found on my store, or you're welcome to message me and I can give you a hand finding things too. I've listed everything in the description on the video for you. Okay, and so we've got all of those designer papers layered. We're going to now put adhesive on the back of the cardstock. This was my garden green cardstock, if I didn't mention that earlier. ready to go. Bring back your tree. Now, you'll see here there's 3 panels on the front and 3 on the back, and yet we only designed 4 things. But just imagine with me that we've got 1, 2 panel and 3. You don't really need to see the one that's going to rest on the table. It doesn't need to be decorated. So when you see your tree at the top, we're decorating panel 1 and panel 2, and this will be the panel that's blank, the bottom, because it's just resting on the table and we don't have to use up designer series paper on it. Okay, again, it'll have a very tight border because of the measurements. You don't want it so tight, just forego the cardstock underneath and use the 1x4 designer paper. You'll have a bit bigger of a border. But I wanted to break up the peacocks. They looked too uniform if I put them on. Okay, so we've got 2 decorated pieces and 1 blank. Let's turn this over. We're going to do 2 more decorated pieces on the back. And then 1 blank on the bottom. Okay, now remember sneaky little white piece who decided to show up on my desk? This one was 2.5x4. He's going to come into play now because we're going to just pop this down, make that nice. This is going to rest in this empty space in the back here. It should be just long enough to give you a border all the way around and a nice writing pad or any sort of greeting. Okay, it can simply be a to or from. You can stamp something on there, but maybe do that before you mount this. It'll just make your life a lot easier. Right. Borders are beautiful. It'll be a little smaller on the bottom border. That's okay. All right, now she's in place. We're ready to decorate a little bit, okay? When you first get it, you might have to kind of bend it so it stays up the way that you want it to. There we go. Okay, so on my little tree here, I want to add some decorations. So what I did is I grabbed our beautiful gold adhesive backed glitter paper and made my life very easy by using this die here. It cuts out all the strings of decor and a star. You can have whichever star you want. So as soon as you use that adhesive back, it will cut these out and they'll be sticky on the back. So you don't need to worry about adding glue. If you don't own these, then of course you can just use regular glitter paper. You'll have to use a fine tip glue pen to add those details. Okay, so we'll start with our star. That's of course going on the top of our tree. Nice and pretty. And then there are 5, I don't know how to put this so you can see, 5 strings of little decor. Okay, so I've already cut them and you can't see that. They're just resting on my board here. Okay, so just start by connecting them. Because we've embossed heat-wise and pattern-wise, you're going to have to press these down quite well. They won't want to stick. It'll be a little awkward. And just make sure that your ends kind of touch each other before moving down to the next string. Or you can decorate your tree however you want. Some people do it differently than I do. Okay, so just back and forth, zigzagging down your tree here. So pretty and shiny. Love it. Yeah. And then the last one's gonna be tricky if you decide to put it on because it will catch when you start moving this up. So if you're willing to kind of sit here and feed it through and be careful with it, you can put it on. If you don't want the hassle, then just forego this last string, okay? So I'm gonna do it because this card's mostly just gonna be sitting up on display. I will just take the risk. Okay. There we go, a nice decorated tree. Then I thought, well, it's beautiful, but I want some sort of sentiment. So I debated like doing a little banner across here, debated popping something up here, but the Merriest Trees set, oh, now I wrecked you. Sit nicely. Doesn't want to sit. All right, there we go. Okay, the Merriest Trees set has this really fun, "We wish you a Merry Christmas" saying. So I took that and I embossed it with silver on a piece of pretty peacock. And then if you take one of the little trees, you can actually cut around it and make a really adorable little Christmas tree with the saying. So I wanted to show this to you because you'll probably get scared in the fact that it does not give you a perfect border. You're going to end up cutting a little bit of your letter off, and don't stress. You can use a larger size tree if you want, but it will kind of take over your card. So I do think that this little tree is really easy. My suggestion is to stamp and emboss on scrap paper and then cut the tree out around it, instead of sometimes we cut like a tree out and try to stamp on it. It'll be tricky and you'll probably burn your fingers trying to emboss it. Stamp and emboss on paper and then go ahead and cut out. All right, now to attach this one, you can pop it on dimensionals, or it's already kind of looking three-dimensional-ish. So I'm just putting tape on the bottom part of the tree, probably about the bottom half an inch up to an inch. And I'm going to just stick it on the front here. Oops. You could cut out another star to put on top of this one too if you wanted, but that is completely up to you. And there's your little tree. Super, super cute. So yes, as I mentioned with this card, you're going to have to kind of fiddle with it a little bit more to actually get it to slip into its slot, because we've embossed and because we've added that gold detail, but it's worth it. I really think it's worth it. And once you get like the bottom inch or quarter inch even, the rest of it kind of slides really easily. But it's this one little gem, there you go, that will give you a lot of trouble. So you really probably just want to display this one. You want to do a design that's easy to fold and unfold, then don't add the glitter, don't add the embossing, just stamp and make it pretty with that. But I like it like this. It's very cute. So there you go. There is a beautiful, fun pop-up panel card. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please like and subscribe to my channel if you do enjoy what you're seeing. It really helps me out and helps me know what you guys are enjoying and what I should do more of. And I look forward to seeing you guys again next Tuesday for another edition of Show Me How It's Done. Bye.